Welcome to the latest episode of the Green Left Show. My name is Isaac Nellist, and today I'm going to be talking to Amanda Shweeta Louis from the Socialist Party of Malaysia, or PSM. Now, Amanda is also coordinates the party's West Papua working group. She's a chairperson of the youth wing of the PSM, and is also a central committee member of Giga America, which opposes US imperialism in the global south and is currently focused on the liberation of Palestine. Now, it's very exciting because Amanda is actually coming to Australia for the Eco-Socialism 2025 conference, Eco-Socialism Not Barbarism, which is taking place in Naarm, Melbourne on the September 5th to the 7th in Brunswick at a venue called Balam Place. So if you interested in what you hear today in this chat and you want to find out more, make sure you get your tickets to Eco-Socialism at ecosocialism.org.au. She's going to be speaking on two panels, one on Prabowo's Indonesia and the struggle for West Papuan self-determination, and the other on rebuilding socialist politics in Southeast Asia. So that's very exciting, and Amanda's one of many guests who are coming from the Asia Pacific region and other parts of the world to the conference. It's going to be a really fun weekend and very interesting, I think. So yeah, check out the full agenda, list of speakers at the Eco-Socialism website, ecosocialism.org.au. Also, just before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking from stolen land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and this land was never ceded, and it always was, always will be Aboriginal land. And Green Left pledges to stand with First Nations people in campaigns for justice, sovereignty, and land rights. Also mention, if you like this episode today and you want to find out more about Green Left, you can get to greenleft.org.au and become a supporter from just $5 a month to help keep this project going. It's the easiest way to both get our content and to support us. And we're also in the middle of a supporter drive at the moment. So we've got a supporter drive live stream coming up on the 16th of August from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Where there'll be a lot of guests tuning in to plug why they think Green Left is important and also talk about the campaigns they're involved in. So you can find that live stream link on the Green Left YouTube or on our events calendar. So now that I've got all of that out of the way, thanks for joining me, Amanda. Welcome to the Green Left Show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So I guess to get started, as I mentioned, you're involved in the youth wing of PSM, and I've been working with student groups as well. So I was just wondering if you could tell us about the current situation for young people and students in Malaysia.
Sure. The situation for students in Malaysia is a bit challenging, I would say, because our system is split into two. We have the public university stream and also private universities, and both have their shortcomings. You see, the last public university was built in the year 2007. This is almost 18 years ago. And I think it's quite a common theme we see in capitalist-led countries where public universities are limited in number and capacity, which then makes entry extremely competitive. And this could also be due to a variety of reasons, but specifically in the Malaysian context, I would say that the existence of the Bumiputra quota that we have. Now, Bumiputra refers to the Malays and the indigenous people. This quota actually dates back to the 1970s, when the government at that time implemented policies designed to favor Bumiputra, which included affirmative action in public education in order to elevate their socioeconomic status. And this effort was actually used to diffuse inter-ethnic tensions following the 13 May incident and to placate the Malay majority through granting them a privileged status over the Malaysian Chinese and Indians. Now, this was originally intended as a temporary measure, but these policies are still in effect. And in 2002, the government actually abolished race-based admissions to public universities. However, this quota system actually remains in some of the matriculation colleges with a 90% quota for Bumiputras, while certain foundation courses are exclusively for Bumiputras. And the issue then comes when public universities can't accommodate everyone. It sort of shows that the government has essentially stepped back from their responsibility of providing free, accessible education to all, and this then opens the floodgates to the private sector. So in Malaysia in 1996, the Private Higher Educational Institution Acts was established, and this is where we saw a mushrooming of private universities in our country. And this has also led the race-based right-wing political parties in Malaysia to seize that opportunity to establish their own educational institutions as a form of maintaining their political hegemony. And we know that private education can be very expensive. Many young people, they graduate with debt, And in Malaysia, we have this student loan system called the PTPTN, which I see as a state-sanctioned debt trap. And just in 2025, May of 2025, our Prime Minister, Anwar, he did say that the government is considering to review these loan rates just to aid borrowers while addressing the issue of the high outstanding debts. Repayment rates are also burdensome, especially given that starting salaries for graduates remain low and job opportunities that match their skills are quite limited. The minimum wage in Malaysia is only 1,700 ringgit, which is not that high. Yeah. And just to share a bit of a personal story, like my own mother had to use her retirement funds for my education after I was not able to gain access into the public university stream. And I feel like this is quite the reality for 1,000 of Malaysians out there. And our education system is quite a brutal engine of neoliberal exploitation. And I like to brand that as the cycle of violence because you pay so much for education, you graduate into the current market that is just so terrible, and then you carry this debt with you. Then you get a job that you don't really like, and then you're living in like alienation or just in a hopeless world. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds I mean we have similar issues in Australia where with the kind of neoliberalization of the university system where it becomes about, producing, workers so that companies can profit, and similar issues around people graduating with high amounts of debt and debt that they can never really pay off. I mean, our government just cut student debt by 20%, which sounds like it's a good kind of small step, but it's that the debt has been increasing through over the years by more than that 20%. So it's kind of not enough. I guess I was just wondering, under this kind of current conditions that students are facing, is the Malaysian government currently doing anything to like address this? So you touched on it a little bit, but just expand on that.
Yeah. Surprisingly, over the past decade, the government has actually been cutting back on how much they spend on public universities. You see, back in the 2010s, higher education got about 6 to 8% of the national budget. And now it's closer to about 4% just last year. And what this means is that on the ground, the universities, these public universities, they are being told to make do with less. And I feel like this shrinking public investment shows a clear gap, especially for the Madani government that we currently have in Malaysia, and their reformist rhetoric that they always throw out, because they are not providing the actual affordable and quality access to higher education like they have promised. And this is, as usual, a part of the broader trend of the neoliberal restructuring that we see, where the cost of education is shifted from the government or the state and is pushed onto the individual and also their families. Yeah. And in Malaysia, we did have the creation of the Ministry of Higher Education only in the year 2004. And this was meant to strengthen the sector. But what has happened is that it has become a tool for politicians because they have more, control over how universities function, because ministers now have the opportunity to appoint their cronies to become vice chancellors at the top, making it like impossible for universities to be independent, I would say. And just to quote some research by New Mandala, they have confirmed that these lofty promises of the national higher education blueprint are often undermined by stagnant funding and outdated financial models. Performance-based funding now rewards short-term metrics like publication counts and graduate employability, rather than long-term goals such as academic excellence, critical thinking, and socially impactful research, which is what we are all lacking in right now.
I guess I was wondering as well how if there's any kind of resistance to this by students and I guess also from university workers and educators as well, if you could talk about that resistance.
Yeah, currently, from my observations, there are no strong student movements that are directly challenging the commodification of higher education in Malaysia. And I would say that there are a few student groups that are organized, but their focus tends to extend beyond educational issues. Some of them engage with broader struggles for democratic rights. For example, some groups have been active in the opposition of the legislative changes in the right to peaceful assemblies in Malaysia. However, the PSM, the Socialist Party of Malaysia, we have been a consistent voice advocating for a fundamental solution, free public education. We've seen education as a fundamental human right, essential for individual development, meaningful societal contribution, and also in improving socioeconomic conditions. Education should not be a commodity. And in Malaysia, to achieve this, it would require a major expansion of the public education infrastructure. This means that building more public universities, colleges, and institutions to increase capacity. And perhaps a crucial first step to be taken is that the government can take over some of these troubled private institutions, and this expansion would then directly address the root cause because you already have these buildings available. So you have that space, so you can allow access for education to more students. And ultimately, free education would significantly ease the economic burden on young people that are facing the rising costs of living.
Yeah, that's sounds like a really important campaign to be involved in as the PSM. And hope, yeah, good luck to that and keep pushing for that. Just to, I guess, shift topics slightly. The biggest movement that's been going on, well, at least in Australia, but also around the world, over the past 2 years has been the Palestine solidarity movement. Obviously, with the genocide that's been going on in Gaza, as well as the attacks in the occupied West Bank. And it's really starting to reach kind of a bigger point here in Australia. We just had a really big march across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which you might have seen. And the Labor government's responded by recognizing Palestinian statehood, which, as people have pointed out online, is a symbolic gesture that doesn't do anything really to stop the genocide, but it reflects, the pressure that they're under from this big movement. And Malaysia is in a very different position as a country that has supported Palestine historically. But as the genocide has escalated, how has the Malaysian government responded? And could you tell us about the kind of the grassroots movement for Palestine as well?
Yeah, yeah, you are right when you said that Malaysia has maintained this long-standing vocal diplomatic position in support of Palestine. And I think the current government has intensified its rhetoric in issuing a lot of strong condemnations of the displacement of the genocide and also calling for decisive international action against Israel and also the United States. But these official statements serve important roles in diplomatic channels. But I also feel that the effectiveness and sincerity of the government is being undermined when you look at how we are having concurrent military engagements. Because recently, actually last year, Malaysia was involved in the RIMPAC, the Rim of the Pacific exercise, which is the world's largest international maritime warfare exercise, which is just jarring to me. And like Israel participated in this. So it's like you're doing in the front, you're showing that you're so pro-Palestine, but in the back, you're like shaking hands with all these dirty people, like just doesn't make sense. And even recently, just last month, we had a military training collaboration with the United States and the Australian imperialist powers through the Curtis Strike exercise, which was said that it was needed under the guise of improving regional security. So we don't know what that means, but it still happened. And this contradiction that Malaysia is in, it puts us in a position where what we're saying just becomes not credible. Condemning words is important, but without real action like imposing sanctions or kicking out the US embassy, words just feel empty. And I think for as long as we continue to cooperate with all these military powers, we are not really doing anything. And it shows that, oh, these strategic relationships or partnerships are more important than the genocide happening right now. So it's just heartbreaking that this is the reality that we live in. And just to talk about the grassroots movement, maybe specifically, I'd like to highlight Gagar. And Gagar, we have, it's sort of considered a front of the PSM. We have been quite active in street actions, teach-ins. We have organized a few protests out of the US Embassy. And the funny thing is, you would think that for a nation that seems so pro-Palestine, at two of these protests, we've had one comrade get arrested. And at another protest, we had two comrades get called in for questioning, which is just why we are all here for the same cause. We want a free Palestine. But yet the police, or I don't know if it's under the power of the US Embassy, who's directing them to conduct all these police investigations. But yeah, that's the reality here.
Yeah, it's a similar thing where I mean Australia has been very much pro-Israel as an imperialist kind of power, especially in this region, and you know, but they will talk about how we don't like seeing the suffering and innocent people being killed and things like that. But then, yeah, sounds are similar where they will say that, but they won't actually do anything meaningful to address it. And actively still, I mean, we're still sending weapons parts to Israel, have deals with Israeli weapons companies, etc. So, but it's good to know that there's groups that are protesting. I guess the especially the US imperialism connection, which is obviously a major part of why this is happening as well. Um, I guess to go to a bit of a more positive note, there's been a bit of a rise in kind of young people in particular looking towards socialism or at least socialist ideas as the solution to a lot of these issues like climate destruction, war, the cost of living and housing and things like that. So is this phenomenon also taking place in Malaysia and why do you think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's happening here. And this is because young Malaysians are just waking up to the harsh truth, capitalism sucks. It's destroying our future, especially when you see you graduate with debt, your paycheck is being used on rent. And yep, the climate crisis is just overwhelming and also worsening. And at the same time, you see all these politicians with corporations shaking their dirty hands. This just means that turning left becomes the only viable option. And why the shift is important is that when we understand that the system is rigged because we work so hard, all of this for what? For profit to get prioritized, and our planet is burning. Another thing for students or young people in Malaysia is that I really feel that we are starved of community. We have really lost third spaces in Malaysia. We need to see more third spaces because what's happening now is they are building all these shopping complexes, especially in like the cities. And every third space that they create sort of demands you to buy something. There's no like third space that's just free or open. We are seeing less and less parks. And it just sucks because why does it mean that living under capitalism means there's no need for a public space that is not profitable. And that's why in the socialist youth of PSM, Pemuda Socialists, our numbers are surging up. We can be considered a vital force of the PSM, and we make up nearly 20% of the party. I feel that what's critical for those who are unsure of what to do when life under capitalism gets too overwhelming, we need to use this energy that fills us to be organized under socialist principles. Now, we must understand that capitalism thrives by dividing struggles. We have climate activists working separately, workers over here mobilizing themselves, students over there doing their own thing. But fighting in isolation is what capitalism wants. And because it makes the movement easier to crush. And socialism provides this framework for us to unite all of these struggles, because at the end of the day, we have to understand that all of our struggles are interconnected when we are fighting the same system. And when people want to turn to liberalism, they must understand that it only offers reforms that just touch the issues here and there. It's not getting to the root cause. And if you want to pander to the right, it's just worse and it's hopeless, because the right, they redirect all their rage to migrants, to the poor, and they continue to protect the elites, the people who actually caused the crisis. And there's a lot of anger and frustration among the youth, but this needs proper direction. Without a clear ideology, this energy, I feel, sort of risks being misdirected or even co-opted by certain groups. And socialist principles provide the analysis and the strategic focus for collective action aimed at fundamental change. That's why PSM's socialist framework is vital. We connect the dots, we unite the struggle into one fight against the core of the capitalist system. And that is also why the correct ideology matters. And when nothing goes right, go left.
That's a great point to end on, and I think it's very important that all these struggles can unite together to resist capitalism. And I think as well it points to, again, I'll plug the upcoming eco-socialism conference, where we also need to unite internationally, and especially within our region, the Asia Pacific region, which is why I think it's great that we've got yourself and another representative from PSM attending the conference, as well as socialist activists from Singapore, from Indonesia, from South Korea, from Philippines. It's going to be a great kind of convergence of all of these of activists, and we can all kind of learn from each other and discuss the kind of issues that we're facing. So I would encourage people, if you want to come and talk, hear from Amanda more and talk about these struggles more, to come to the conference at ecosocialism.org.au. Is there anything you'd like to add before we finish up?
I'm just super excited to be there, and I can't wait to meet you all and hear these important conversations happen. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much to Amanda, and I hope that everyone listening found this interesting and engaging. And as I said at the beginning, if you'd like to support Green Left, head to greenleft.org.au/support, and plans start from just $5 a month. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Green Left Show. Thanks for watching.